I would take a few minutes to entertain questions if people have time to stay.
And when they're doing archaeological digs and stuff, don't they have like a rule of, hey, if it's 10 miles away, you can't use that? Or,
Yes. He's asking, shouldn't there be, or is there any rules as you do this paleoanthropology? If there's not within certain proximity, you can't use it. I think from a scientific perspective, I would defend that. So like, if you find a dinosaur and it's parts of a stegosaur, and you might start to think, well, I think this is some of the same creature that died over here or over there. Over time, you're going to find more intact, and you might find more and more. And they've actually found like examples where they've had to throw out previous ideas because they have a more intact one, and they realize that a piece that they picked up over there wasn't really part of a stegosaur. So honestly, no, there aren't rules.
or just to follow up, you only have one bone, you can't create a whole.
That would seem logical, wouldn't it? That would seem logical.
About dark skin, light skin. Mm-hmm. What about blonde hair, blue eyes versus dark eyes, dark hair?
I'm not sure that those have as much survival, but I would say just like God in creation, you see birds of all colors, you see plants of all structures, for beauty. I just think we have a God that loves beauty. And so he just creates a diverse people type. There could be, survival traits and stuff in that, but I think some of it is just God's desire to just create beautiful things.
Well, I read that the Vikings would hurl a baby over a cliff if he didn't have blonde hair or blue eyes.
Well, and that wouldn't have been God's will. So what you're saying is that there can be cultural selection as well, and I would agree with that. Like the pygmies, there got to be this idea that short was attractive, and so they just kept marrying the shortest. And so it's kind of like what we've done with dogs. You select for a feature, and you're going to start to see that in the population. So there is human shaping in cultures. And
I think the blue eye has something to do with the amount of light in the dark eye.
That is very true, too.
More light.
Absolutely.
What about anatomical comparisons between like gorillas and somewhat human-like features?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was the same trip or another one in Washington, D.C. I was at the National Zoo, and I'm watching the gorilla exhibit. And there's the big silverback, he's the dad. There's a mom cradling her baby. There's the toddler and the juvenile. I mean, there was I could see us in them. And I was, oh my gosh, what do I do with it? And then all of a sudden, the mom is snuggling the baby, and then she reaches over and she scoops up a pile of you-know-what. And I was like, okay, so there are differences. So there are differences. And I guess what I say to that is like, I do believe, so as intelligent creators, mankind has put wheels on a lot of different things. There's wheels on a cart, there's wheels on a bike, there's wheels on a car. They aren't the same thing, but you use the same part because it's useful. So if God made a creature that has legs and arms that are similar, but it doesn't mean it's the same thing or for the same purpose. That's how I tend to look at that.
The body, though, anatomically?
Right. So an intelligent creator would reuse body parts in different organisms, but that doesn't mean they have the same purpose or function. And we're the ones that God created in his image. And when we look at all of diversity, apes did not put man on the moon. Apes did not invent the internet or computer. We're different. So we might have similar anatomical features, but we are different. Good questions.
When you talked about with your mother giving an answer,
Mm-hmm.
so when did your face search light turn on finally, or your answers that you were looking for?
Thank you for that question, because I meant to share this earlier. Yes. When did my light come on as far as when my mom said you just have to have faith? Now, I believed the whole time. I believed. And, I mean, God knows my heart. He knows when I really believed. But what I would say is I kind of I had two pairs of glasses. I had my church glasses, and I had my science glasses. And I think that's what a lot of us do. I always believed, I would have said I believed. I went to church. I did all the churchy things. But what I would say is that what happened after my mom made that comment, this is how God works too. Within about 2 weeks, she called me and she said, Kaia, there's a conference coming to Sioux Falls that we need to go to. And I thought it was called Answers to Genesis, because in my intellectual arrogance, I thought we were going to fix what God got wrong in Genesis, right? And it's actually called Answers in Genesis. And I went to that conference, and scientist after scientist got up and gave this kind of information. And it was like putting on old shoes, comfortable shoes. I was like, I don't have to switch glasses. This is just how I see the world. I believe in God, I believe in the Bible, and I believe in every ounce of science. There's a way to interpret that every time I've done it, if I use the biblical lens, it fits beautifully. And so often, the evolutionists have to, remember the box where if it doesn't fit, you should either reject or change the theory, but it's like science forgot to do that. It just keeps not working, and they keep coming around. So I would say after I answered my intellectual questions, I started digging and searching. I was working at the university, and I had access to the college library, and I was in there devouring geology and anthropology, and I was reading everything. And that is when I really know my faith started to grow, because I didn't have to play the game of what I believed on this day, you know. And the old me never would have been in the jail sharing the good news, because I believed in God, but I didn't believe in God. And now he has me sent out, and it's glorious. The hope that it's good news, and the hope that we bring to the people when we share is tremendous. So thank you. I saw one over here.
I'm just wondering on the ark example, you had dogs.
Yeah.
Did the dogs, like the fox and the coyote and all that, come from one set of two animals that God brought to the ark? Or was there...
I believe there was a dog kind, like two dog-like creatures that had the genetic information through small evolution, change over time in various natural environments they would be selected for. And they created different, so you get the diversity over time. And the 4,000 years since the ark, you know, that would be sufficient time to see the diversity that we have.
Wouldn't you see then like something new then? Or time keeps making another
They just,
dog-like creature?
but again, that's what the fossil evidence shows, is that we always go back, as far back in the fossil record as we can find, there are just these representations of families. In the Linnaeus classification system, you know, you get down to like order, family, genus, species, you know. Along the family line, they can still reproduce with each other. But no, we don't, and Darwin himself said, we just don't see it in the geological column. We don't see transitional organisms. The ones that people bring up and try to put out as missing links, you know, really the more we find out about those creatures, as we gather more evidence, they just fall into one camp or the other. We don't have in-betweens. Anything else?
Earlier you mentioned about, well, there was one time you said 10-mile radius, but you mentioned about football fields where they found different bones. Did they bring all those bones together thinking that there was a shift in like the soil and that they separated it, or was it like movement of water that caused the bones to separate instead of being close together in a certain area with the skeleton?
Right, and that's not to say that those kinds of things couldn't happen. You know, as the organism, you know, the only thing is fossils are formed through rapid burial. Fossils are formed through rapid burial. So honestly, if that kind of stuff was happening on a dead creature, what happens when something dies? It's just like if you see something on the side of the road, it doesn't take very long. And so those things that have those kinds of forces in nature happen on them, if they've had rodents eating them and bacteria decaying them, if they've had rainwater and wind, they're probably not going to be fossilized. It would be my response to that. And it's not to say they couldn't be, and it's not to say that they couldn't be bones from different representatives of the same species. But it's just a stretch. I just didn't realize the kind of leaps that they were taking. I was surprised to find that.
But then where does the fossil, if something dies and becomes fossilized,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't it all become fossilized? Why isn't it all there?
Well, there I would say, wouldn't you, over the years then, as Earth shifts and things like that, that you're going to have things broken up, and I mean, yeah, I think so.
Last questions?
You guys have been a great audience. Thank you.
Let's give it up for